With the guys, welcome back. It is time for us to get into another round of our lovely Trick or Treat PUBG Mobile NA action. Of course, my name is DK, joined by the one and only Esports. How are you doing today?
Feeling good, feeling ready for some spicy and sneaky spooky action. Last week was really interesting. We had a lot of teams, just stepping up to the plate, showing that consistency, showing some delicious nades, and I hope we see a little bit more of that today.
Oh yes, we want to see a little bit of that gore come out, right? It is, of course, the trick or treat. We want to see a little bit of those sweets being strewn all over the place. But, of course, we need to have a bit of a look and see, what the kind of format is, everything that the teams are going to be going about, and we'll be getting into that momentarily. But as we know, right, this being our second week for the semi-finals, the teams have worked their way through an entire week of play. Each day, teams get an opportunity to make it up to this point. So I'm curious to see exactly what that is going to result in, right? We have a few familiar names showcasing or pitching up once again, so maybe we could see that extra added bit of improvement coming through again.
There's that possibility, but of course they need to stay consistent. We saw that happening last week with the Level X Esports. They were bringing in that consistency, picking up the points one map after another map, and they were looking like the team that I was going to be, congratulating at the end of the night. This is the semi-final, we were waiting for them, and then Manic just at the final moment got those last 2 points that they needed to just edge them forward before Level X Esports. So those points, they need to come in clutch here tonight for the teams, and they need to bring that consistency, hopefully, because they've only got 3 maps, DK. 3 maps to make their stance, and then it's over.
Yeah, it's going to be one run on each. Of course, we are going to be starting on Erangel, heading over to Miramar, and of course, making our way over onto Sanhok to close it off for the day. So it's going to be quite an interesting rotation coming through. As we know, Erangel being the bread and butter of PUBG, and as my friend Red Eye says, Miramar, Sanhok, that's kind of the parents of Erangel, right? Erangel being the love child of both of those 2 maps. So we want to see how the teams are going to be faring out in the lovely desert, of course, also then out in that lovely jungle. But first, we have to make it through the Erangel to see where the teams are going to be making their way towards. And of course, the teams are prepping themselves now to hop over onto the plane. And of course, then we have to take a bit of a look and see what the awards are, right, for our teams. And once they get up into the finals, it is going to be that first place being worth $1,000.
As we trickle it down, $800 for second place, $700 for third place, and it goes all the way down to, I believe that was 8th, but there was a 2 7s, and it got me very confused. But we also will be awarding an MVP award for that wonderful player that just rises amongst the rest to pick up an extra $200. So a little bit at stake here, for the teams if they want not only the bragging rights but also to line their pockets with some ka-ching. They need to make sure that they get themselves into the finals, and the only way to do that, DK, is of course qualifying within our semi-finals. Top 6, I believe, go through into the finals from every single semi-final weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the pressure is on, right? The pressure is definitely on. But one thing that I realized from what we just looked at is, like, if you end in 7th twice, right, it's going to be quite an interesting run, right? So yeah, that as we know, it's probably just a oopsie there, but either which way, still a really decent breakdown of that prize pool to come through. And of course, now this then means we are making our way that much closer to hopping into our very first game of the day. Now, once we get into Erangel, where are we looking for that flight path to go towards, right? Are we going to be looking for something pretty much down the center, or are you looking for something a little bit more to those edges?
Those edges of Erangel always get a little bit crazy for me, even if we go towards that Sunken City area, or we, really want to go crazy and head all the way to the southern portion. They're joining that military base action. Then things tend to get a little bit crazy. But I mean, I'm happy just for a nice center zone. Let's start off these teams. It's been a while since we've seen them. It's been a while since they might have been on a stream, but perhaps, who knows? So let's just start off strong. Let's start off nice and easy. Erangel always gets crazy towards the end anyway.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going to be looking forward to all the insanity about to unfold on that battlefield. But of course, speaking about the teams, we've got the players there from Skills of Mind. We've got Force Chiwana, or Chiwana, there we go. Something along those lines. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Exactly. That's why I've got an S here, right? To help me pronounce words properly. We've got Evolution Gaming also then being one of our teams alongside the Purge of Fire. We've got the players there from MPX Somot. right?
I would
We've
say
got
so.
the extreme slayers. We got the friend killers. Maybe stay away from them. We've got the Meter Shot ESP team. We've got Excuse, Blinded by Win. We've got Mazex's Esports. We've got Team Claws. We've got the X Ozone. We got the Shinyang team, as well as the Four Potentia, Hunters Esports, the Five Rivers, GR Esports, and then, of course, the Strangers BD. So definitely a few names that we saw last week, right? Exozone, we know, for instance, were playing last week. Meter Shot, Strangers BD. There's a few of them that we are going to be looking to see what they'll bring. And, of course, Blinded by Win. We know at the end of last week, they finished in 16th place, so hoping for a bit of an improved performance come the second round.
If we're working off the stats at what we got last week, out of all of the teams that we do actually have available this week, I would say Exozone is going to be one of those big, threatening, looming threats for all of these teams because, as we know, they finished up in 3rd place. Yes, they were perfectly tied with Dope and Care Bears with 37 points respectively. So it was a very close and contentious 3rd place, but they're still one of those possible threats that these teams need to be ready and prepped for. And DK, we're starting off with that eastern side zone. It's a little bit of military action involved, but again, a nice, easy zone in terms of that combination with the flight pass. So the teams, they should be able to get themselves situated pretty easily.
They should, right? But I think it's a question of whether they will be able to get that done, as we do see a little bit of that congestion, especially towards the western side of the zone. But I'm also curious to see what's going to be happening over in, like, Georgia Pool, right? We do see several teams dropping in and around that Georgia Pool, Zaki kind of territory, with a little bit of love being shown to shooting range, but not an excessive amount. So there is a few options for the teams to still looking to get themselves situated.
I agree with you. Georgia Pool and Zaki is like one of those two places that I'm really keeping an eye out. We have so many teams that are just clustered towards those points. I mean, there's a potential for some of that action as well when we start to move all of those teams away from that northwestern portion to actually be in contention for the zone. Then we start, bringing in some of that action. We start bringing in some of those rotation engagements as the teams are trying to get them situated. It's only a handful really that find themselves in center zone, just kind of relaxing. But we already see a few eliminations popping up on the feed there. So it does look like Five Rivers are going to be one of the teams to start us off with, hopefully with a res here now that they've gotten some revenge.
Ooh, yeah, this could definitely be a nice potential play. I mean, already locking that hit in, as you've mentioned, but now it's up to Brock to see whether or not that that res is going to be secured. And it does seem like they're not going to be too heavily contested, right? Still having a bit of an opportunity to play out here. They've got a little bit of movement still to make, so I'm not feeling too stressed about them. We do see quite a few teams still holding on to that northern edge, but for now, I do think the Five Rivers are relatively comfortable, at least for the time being.
Absolutely. So, I mean, they should be able to take that rotation on in, get themselves well situated, pretty much really in zone, but just hopefully into a place that's less, less populated in terms of the teams that they just have in the vicinity, at least for the time being. It definitely could prove a little bit interesting later on. Again, this is all in zone. This is all where the safety lies. We have so many teams on the outskirts, however, Exo Zone being one of the very few teams moving in from the outside that I don't see having contention. I mean, they're going to be moving on in there from Severny, just a straight shot into the zone, and really no contention for them. But that's pretty much where it ends in terms of peaceful encounters for any other team that are, jumping on in from the outside trying to get themselves into zone.
Yeah, I do think, however, as we get closer to the end of this phase, we are going to be seeing a lot more of movement coming through from our respective teams who are still on those outlying regions, but also a team like Purge, for instance. I'm waiting to see whether or not they are going to be maintaining the position they've got on the edge of that zone. Purge of Fire still having a bit of a potential play to push, maybe a little bit closer the direction of shelter, right? Maybe moving up towards that hill that is close to center, but not exactly center zone.
Oh, some potential there. I saw Meter Shot also taking a hit or two, but already GR Esports, they picked up, many a hit, many a knock, and now potentially another, as Vortex just needs to make sure those HP bars are kept under control, while 4 people rotate on in for those reses here. But DK, this is looking good for some contention here for GR.
Yeah, definitely looking good for GR. All they got to do now is just try and find these extra little bit of pressure points. But I mean, looking at the plays here from for Potentia, right? Quickly moving in, getting that raise, and then disengaging, breaking up, making it just that extra bit more challenging for GR to get a straight line of sight on them.
Yeah, I mean, moving on in there for the res and now just trying to, as you said, spread out, get those flanking positions, and also just the different angles that they can use against GR Esports. We can already see one member trying to get an immediate flank. There was a little bit of action from the other side as well, but GR Esports, for the time being, they're holding down on that containment, and now that might be with the vehicles jumping on in. Riker already rotating around, trying to get a different angle into this one because the plan is not quite there. You can see that they're definitely taking that calculated approach, but they needed something like that. They needed Luffy to find that connection.
Yeah, and this is now that opportunity for that first pickup to come on through, and Vortex now going to be sent into a completely different Vortex, not the one that they were hoping for. But as you can see, the rest of the players here from GR, they've also disengaged, just looking to get themselves secured slightly more easily. And I mean, I can't really blame them for leaving their player behind.
Yeah, no, in that situation, I mean, going for that recovery up against let's say a 1v3 or 1vx, whatever situation you're going to be finding yourself, you're on the back foot. And at that moment in time, immediately that call is going to be made that no, we need to focus on the longevity of the team. We need to keep ourselves alive. We need to go for a higher placement, higher eliminations later on. But right now, this is not the time and the place to do it. So a lovely disengage from them. As you can see, some of those teams already migrating to the center of the zone as well. So there's some space being built here, DK. I mean, it's a lot less chaotic than what I was expecting when we started this rank.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot less chaotic, but I think that's maybe just around the corner as we have quite a few teams now starting to move a little bit more in towards the zone. We do see that slight bit of congestion happening towards the more center point at this time, but also up towards that northern edge. And I think this is where this next zone shift is going to be either alleviating some of that pressure for the teams or creating even more of that to come through now.
Yeah, just a little bit of that recenter on itself, as we will be, moving a little bit closer towards that mansion area, just really providing some opportunities there into Rozak as well. But as these teams, they now need to make their rotations on in. We can see, as you mentioned, that western portion still looking pretty stacked. Those are all those teams that have moved on in from that northwestern side with those initial drops. Now, once again, they're finding themselves in a cluster because, well, there's just not enough space to move on in such a tight-knit angle.
Yeah, but that's the kind of part of the job, right? You got to find a way to get yourself just squeezed into that little bit more of an opportune position. And I mean, for Potentia, got to be looking to find a bit of a potential position as they are yet to get themselves ahead of that blue zone. But we're curious to see what's going to happen up in the northern territories, right? We do have the players there from Azexis also now starting to move up ever so slightly. And it does seem like they are potentially going to be contested with the Stranger BD team.
We did see some shining moments from Strangers in the previous week, so I would hope that they just come back and they build on the strengths that they already have. They show us a little bit more of the shining brilliance that we saw, but we'll talk about that in a little while. In the meantime, we can talk about Claws and just the sheer spray down that they're just absolutely throwing at the back of Ruby here as they're trying to make that rotation out. Five Rivers also, once again, picking up some beautiful eliminations. Now, Evolution Gaming here looking for the elimination.
Ooh, this could be a nice trade, nice nade to come in here as well, but will it find that position? Oh, a little bit of a cheeky bounce right in that building, but now the opportunity comes through here. It is going to be Brock finding that trade, and this is not what the players here from Evolution Gaming would want to have happen, but still there could be a bit of a saving grace as Brock is just on the edge. Out comes the nade. Could that be the one to seal it? Not just yet, but it does, however, find quite a bit of damage into Brock. Not sufficiently so to send them backing. But now it is all up to Pubg. See if they can maybe secure a few of these eliminations. That is ideally what I would have been focusing at this point, right? Just trying to secure at least these 3 elims that are lying just in front of you.
I mean, it's easy confirmations, right? You can just quickly get those confirmations. At the very least, it hurts your opponent one way or another, regardless of what happens in this engagement, whether you lose it or you win it. You just get those small victories into that next engagement. Right now, Brock's still just hunting and looking for this final member of Evolution Gaming so that they can continue, so that they can push on forward. Mercy still leading out on the ground, and they've already lost 2 members confirmed, so not looking too great on that end. Fourth Tijuana also picking up or looking to pick up a little bit of action here, as all of the teams now, with that congestion, they're capitalizing, DK. They're looking for opportunities.
Yeah, definitely looking to capitalize on these opportunities, but there's still quite a bit of pressure now coming through for Evolution. They've had the opportunity to get themselves reset, but the same thing can be said for the players there from Five Rivers. You can see Mercy also now back in the fight. So it's going to be of the utmost importance for Deco and the rest of the crew now to try and find these extra few angles. But those nades, they're looking pretty scary.
Deku just staying up to their namesake somehow, some way, still alive, still surviving. But Five Rivers, they are looking for these confirmations, a few more nades to be able to throw into the action, while Team Claws are just hunting and on the hunt, on the prowl. They will be able to find 1 or 2 confirmations here just to add to the tally.
Oh, and that tally is definitely the thing that you want to chase to some extent, right? As we can see already, Team Claws, Kari does get that one, quickly tending to their teammate there, just making sure that everyone is in the fight. But now that could be a little bit of a troubling play, as we can see the rush now coming through. Evolution looking to double down on their efforts. They want to find that angle on towards the players there from Five Rivers, but it doesn't seem like Five Rivers want to give them that opportunity just yet. Now Loops is going to be looping in and out of these buildings, looking for that approach.
Absolutely, we've got a few more confirmations coming on through. Friend Killers. Oh, I'm sorry to see that, but with 0 eliminations, they didn't find any friends to kill this time. So not too bad, not too bad, DK. But they probably will be coming back on Miramar even more hungry. For now, though, we are still just watching as all of this is still unfolding. Evolution still looking for Five Rivers. Now Extreme Slayers looking for their own team wipe. Well, we do get that confirmation onto Five Rivers and Claw.
Yeah, good showing coming through here, as we do see the numbers starting to fall bit by bit. But of course, speaking about numbers falling, that zone meanwhile has taken a bit of a shift onto the eastern side. Strangers DB going up alongside the players here from the XO zone, so still the trading will continue. As we look onto the players here from Blinded by Win, they now have a great opportunity to try and bring in a bit of a gatekeep angle towards this northwestern side of the zone, right? We've got EXO just towards the east of them, but still the players there from Zexes are yet to rotate into the zone itself. And there's quite a few other teams also then still situated towards that northern side. So quite a few opportunities lie in wait.
Yeah, I do love the opportunity here for Blinded by Win. This position that they're holding, as you mentioned, from that northwestern side. A good bit of cover, a good bit of open space just surrounding them. But now these rotations need to move on in. There's still a handful of teams that are outside of that zone that still need to squeeze their way into the safety. As you can see, MP Smot, making that rotation on in, just potentially past a team or 2 or 3 or 4. Let's see how it's going to be going, though, because this rotation is a little bit cheeky, just ahead of Force Tijuana. But they should be able to get away with it.
Yeah, but I mean, Force Tijuana in such a beautiful position, right? In that kind of a transitional pathway of so many teams still having to move through from that western edge. But now, Blinded by Win, looking to anchor down on their own position. They do have a bit of an opportunity down low, but are they going to be able to find those necessary hits onto the players there from Skills of Mind?
The question at the back of all of our minds. Actually, I didn't mean for that pun to actually come out, so I'm sorry to everyone watching. But the rest of the teams, they're going to still be making those rotations on in. Skills of Mind, as you mentioned, they're going to be keeping a very good eye on those rotations. And you mentioned earlier with the Force Tijuana and their current positional play, that allows them not only to gatekeep, to play with a little bit of that containment, but that's that early foundational play that can happen here. Just picking up 1 or 2 eliminations as teams have to make those rotations could really bolster them into the final moments. But at least, DK, we have our first vehicle explosion of the evening.
Oh, gotta love it. Gotta love it as these spray downs just come on through. Now it's going to be Trixie Boy trying to find the confirmation up on towards Loops. Meanwhile, the rest of the players from the side there of the Evolution gaming team are maybe focusing their efforts elsewhere, right? Prioritizing a little bit of that longevity and not going to be looking to get caught up I mean, Skills of Mind also just going to be hunkering down on their own kind of angle here. But still so many teams held up in the vicinity. 15 alive, 50 players just strewn all around the zone.
And I do have to say, we were talking about those namesakes earlier. Extreme Slayers already picked up those 7 eliminations. So if you want to talk about sticking to your name, sticking to the guns, well, Extreme Slayers, they are setting the tone for the first Erangel of the day, for the first map of the day, rather, as the teams are going to be moving on in further and further to Miramar and Sanhok after this one. And now we just take a look and we wait to see who are going to be the last few teams to join on this southwestern side, because for the time being we've got 6 teams that need to make the rotation into the zone.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a pretty tough one and quite a crowded zone for them to try and play in. But now the Extreme Slayer is still going to be going at their business. As you can see, Snow trying to rain down a little bit of the chaos, finding a bit of an opportunity up ahead. And this is what makes it so challenging, because, I mean, there's not a lot of opportunity really for the teams now to maybe sneak on through. But I'm loving the aggression or just the level of complexity that the players here from Extreme Slayers are adding onto the team there from Force Tijuana.
I mean, absolutely. It is a threat for them to move on from this point in time. If they disengage, if they take that rotation into maybe a little bit closer there towards prison or just further into the zone, they not only give up their position, they not only put themselves at risk, you know, moving down this hilltop, but if they don't get rid of Force Tijuana, then that could be another team looking to take them out of the scenario. So this next dash into the zone is going to be quite treacherous. We'll see if Force Tijuana is going to be able to step up quick enough to do anything about it, or if they will be left to their own devices within zone.
Oh, we see a little something happening over on that eastern side. This is where things could get quite interesting. We got the players there from 4 Potentia now about to meet up with Mazexes, who of course are also then finding themselves relatively close to 2 other teams looking for that rotational pathway back into the zone. But quickly, the players here from Excuse are going to be taking aim over on towards Evolution Gaming, looking to just try and leverage all of the different angles that they've got.
As the teams are now making a few rotations on in those 2 teams you were mentioning earlier, Exozone is going to be one of them, and they've actually opted in for a more southern approach, which is just where we saw a little bit of that action earlier with Force Tijuana as well. Still on the outskirts of the zone, still slowly but surely moving on in. Excuse now jumping into the vehicles, trying to do something similar, trying to get themselves set up for all of the teams swarming into center, looking for a safe haven.
Well, there's definitely going to be a little bit of that expectation coming through, looking to see if they'll be able to get themselves into safe havens. But, you know, Zex is now going to be looking to squeeze in on that eastern front. Meanwhile, Excuse now taking aim, looking to hunker down on the edge of prison. A good vantage point being quite available here for them to try and capitalize on.
Absolutely, just running around here, prison, using the terrain to their advantage. Absolutely what they need to do in this moment in time. And as we know, a lot of those rotations came on in from this angle, so if they're hot on the trigger, they can just gift themselves a few of those eliminations. But the Blue Zone will be stealing that one away from Chronix for the time being, unfortunately. But there are still plenty of eliminations to go around. Meanwhile, Mazexis, look at this position that they're holding in zone, DK.
Oh, yeah, definitely looking pretty interesting. But now, right, Mazexis is going to be able to try and push on through, get that extra little bit of spice added into the mix. I mean, it's still quite challenging, right? Still sitting with 13 teams. We are in that 5th phase, approaching the 6th phase. And it's not going to be stopping anytime soon, but definitely quite a bit of aggression being shown here by Excuse.
And I like it. Again, we saw what we were talking about, our fantastic teams from the previous week doing something similar. I mean, I'm just reminded of Level X Esports in that same regard. Excuse maybe might be that Level X that we need this week, but we'll have to wait and see if they can just close it on out. At this point in time, it's still Extreme Slayers leading the pack with those eliminations, and Chronix is just being a nuisance for any and every team that want to make that rotation on in past prison.
Well, definitely still going to have quite a few opportunities to try and make it even more challenging all across that board. But where's it going to go, though, right? I mean, as we now look onto our teams, it is going to be still a very back position. But Mazex is not trying to capitalize on the northern side, already sitting with those 7 eliminations. Pretty close to what we see the Extreme Slayers currently holding on to. But Extreme, they are not really secured within zone. Mazex, though, on the other hand, are having a little bit of difficulty here.
I mean, for a moment there, I thought that was going to be the end of MBX Samot, but somehow, some way, just for a moment at least, they managed to survive. Oh, that is until the absolute brutality came through here from the rest of the teams. You can see Xinjiang right in the middle, in the center, bringing in that action. Still a few more teams rotating on in now, as there's a little bit of a purge coming on in from the western side as well.
Yeah, it is going to be Purge on fire, indeed, now looking to get themselves secured, but that zone is just going to be baiting them as it now moves to that southern edge. Up comes a nade, on point! Finds the head, an absolutely fantastic shot being delivered there.
This is what we were talking about, those delicious nades. Well, there's your prime example. Trick or treat. It's only pain, unfortunately. But these teams need to move themselves on in. Extreme Slayers running around right now, DK, with 13 eliminations, and I can't see an end to their terror.
Yeah, I mean, it is looking pretty amazing, especially if you are Team Extreme. But, I mean, Extremes, they still need to secure a position, right? They do have that somewhat of an anchor point set up on that far southern edge, but it doesn't really allow them too much leverage into the rest of the zone. Now, as we look towards the northern territories, it is also then the place here for Mazexes, still trying to find a little bit of a pathway, having to do quite a bit of rotation here, but even Xinjiang are going to be looking to just keep up that contention.
I love it. I love it. Just absolutely applying the pressure. But again, at some point in time, they need to let go of that trigger. They need to really focus on that rotation on in. They're going to be moving on in from that northwestern portion. And as we know, that is right alongside a number of teams that are currently holding a position of that northern part of the zone. And now, well, all that this pressure that they've been applying has given them is just to trigger a target on their back as they need to make that rotation in.
Oh, yeah, the target definitely being on now. It is going to be the place here. Oh, taking a bit of a plunge here, blinded by Win. Also now looking for a bit of an opportunity to get themselves secured on through, but not a lot of availability remains. It is a pretty backed position, and that zone gets even smaller. Of course, now, so you can see the squad there coming through. Oh, from Xinjiang also getting sent on their merry way. Mercy got to be the last remaining hopeful for the team. Quite a bit of pressure coming through. Maybe this nade on towards Mazexes could be what's needed. Unfortunately, it doesn't find the exact position just yet. Maybe the second one will. Oh, finds the inactive though.
No mercy holds bar in this situation. And again, Mazexes is the only team at this point in time, just purely based on eliminations, that could stand up to Extreme Slayers. So for them to go out here, it's going to be open pickings here for any of the teams, and Mercy really applying the pressure. But now, again, it's that calm before the storm. We can see that zone moving on up here, really favoring the Extreme Slayers. They pretty much got the entirety of the next zone surrounded, DK. So it's only Mazexes and Xinjiang coming through here from that northern side that can be any sort of competition.
Oh, but Mercy has none of that. As we can see, Extreme Slayers just ripping it up down to the final 3 teams. We go. Mazexes now trying to make that mad dash to get themselves secured within the area, but not quite sure where they are going to be able to find that. I mean, now we are down to our final 2 teams, as we do have that head coming in. Mazexes also just absolutely getting obliterated now. Sawa and inactive, looking for that approach, but this is where the Extreme Slayers look absolutely on the money. Inactive now just dodging those bullets, but the blue zone is going to be dealing quite a bit of damage. Quickly turning around to find that extra bit of a trade. And the Extreme Slayers, rather, I almost said the Extra Slayers, but the Extreme Slayers, they take the victory, right? Locking in quite a phenomenal performance. And I mean, Lala walking away with 11 of the team's eliminations.
11, DK. Oh my goodness. I mean, if ever there was a point for an MVP, it would be given at this very moment. Picking up 11 eliminations as an individual player. I mean, we freak out when a team does that. Now for a single individual to do that, I mean, come on. Extreme Slayers, they absolutely were keeping to their namesake there on that first Erangel. Again, question comes through. I mean, that comparison between them and Level X Esports. Level X, they really were one of those teams that just would not go down without a fight, picking up elimination after elimination, but they didn't quite translate that into a winner-winner chicken dinner as well. So Extreme Slayers, they've set a precedent here.
Oh, they definitely have set quite a bit of a precedent. And I mean, the interesting part is going to be looking to see whether or not that is going to be a kind of performance that they'll be able to carry through into our remaining matches, right? Over into Miramar and over into Sanhok. But I think at this point, it's pretty safe to say that we've got a pretty good idea as to who our MVP is going to be, right? I'm pretty sure that it's going to be Lala, but we do have a few other, good players to mention as well, right? We did see Inactive also locking in an insane amount of eliminations, coming in with those 7. But yeah, got to give it to Lala. This is looking pretty great. 1,213 damage with 4 assists alongside the 11 eliminations. Absolutely insane.
It's disgusting, DK. It's disgusting. How dare he? I'm kidding. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful performances coming through. Not only from Extreme Slayers as a team, they look calm, collected, they look clinical, but also just Lala absolutely mowing down the competition there. So that's what you want from your individual player. That's the kind of crazy energy that we want. But again, as you mentioned, top 4 teams, it's not just Extreme Slayers that were, well, doing what their name suggests. We also had Mazexas picking up those 14 eliminations, also locking down some beautiful damage. Exozone, MPX and Mott, they were not far off as well. I mean, respective in terms of just the disparity in terms of eliminations to damage, Extreme Slayers is going to take the trophy any day of the week. I mean, 20 eliminations in total, 2.2k damage. That is the craziest conversion rate I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, they had some really heavy triggers in this past match. I mean, but I gotta say though, the conversion rate is it's a really good conversion rate, right? Not a lot of wastage coming through on that. Only 2 eliminations worth of damage, not resulting in eliminations itself. So a very healthy play. But yeah, I do think the Extreme Slayers, their logo is kind of fitting for the theme that we have going on here as well. But just a quick bit of a comparison here between the Extreme Slayers and Mazexas just shows us how fairly even the approach was here. I mean, yes, Mazexas, even though they didn't find 20 eliminations, still a very strong performance that they brought through.
And I mean, they were one of the teams that have been bringing forth those delicious nades. As you can see, 4 grenade kills to Mazexas, where it was 0 to Extreme Slayers. They've just been focusing on the guns, right? They've just been hitting the triggers. They're making sure they're hitting those aiming grounds and bringing forth some beautiful performances. But the head-to-head here, again, there's an elephant in the room when we talk about that. The 20 kills to 14 kills. It's quite a bit of a disparity in terms of the fact that you just think about this was all done in a single map. I mean, for them to pick up... my math doesn't want to say this, but for them to pick up a 35-pointer game in one game. I mean, yeah. just to put this into perspective, right? Our third place team from the previous week had 37 points. They are 2 points behind our third place finisher from the previous week.
Yeah. And that was game. After 3 matches. Yeah. And that was 37 after 3 games compared to 35 in just 1. It's insane, right?
It's illegal.
It's it's mind-blowing. But I mean, well done to Extreme Slayers. That was quite the extreme performance coming through in our very first match of today. Curious to see whether or not that momentum is going to carry through into the next 2 matches. But before we go anywhere, of course, we have to take a look at our overall ranking scores. Those 35 points that you rightly so called out. Looking pretty amazing. But of course, Mazex is locking in 26. Also, not something to scoff at.
Whew. Again, I'm just, all I can do is compare it to the first week, right? That's all. That's the only stats we can really work with. Again, it's going to be quite sporadic as we go through the weeks by weeks, but I'm going to remind everyone watching right now, our first place team from the previous week, after 3 maps, had 42 points. And Extreme is only 7 points away from tying that and potentially taking that further. They've got a whole another 2 maps to do it with. So if you want to talk about a jump start into the action, I mean, just look no further than Extreme Slayers. As we go down the board as well, very top heavy in terms of the points distribution. I mean, 26 to Mazexas, then you've got 40 to for Potentia, 12, 9, and then it just drops.
Yeah, I mean, we can take the insanity a little bit further. I mean, Mazexas and Extreme right? Both these teams have more eliminations than our team that took the dub after 3 games last week, right? So it's pretty insane to see such a heavy hitting performance come through. But as we know, that was only match number 1. We, of course, have still 2 more to go. Next up, we are going to be heading over into the lovely desert over in the Miramar to see what the teams are going to be doing when presented with a little bit more of the ranged opportunities, right? I mean, technically, it's the same size. Erangel, Miramar, same size, same amount of squares, right, to make up the map, but Erangel obviously having a lot more water in there, so a lot more of the playable area coming through on Miramar. So curious to see how this is then going to translate into that desert action.
I mean, also the zones and the flight paths that we have. I mean, we have to remind ourselves, we started off with a fairly, I'll say, a well-behaved flight path and zone combination, right? It wasn't anything too crazy. We had a few more shifts towards the end, as is expected of Erangel, you know, no shocker there. But with Miramar, with those scarcely, you know, very, very dispersed zones, when we see, you know, or an extreme west or an extreme south or an extreme whatever on Miramar, it completely changes the game for these teams. And we've seen teams before just basically use the entirety of a Miramar match trying to catch up to the zone because the flight path went completely the other way. So we'll have to wait and see if Miramar is going to behave today or if it's going to be an absolute nuisance. Trick or treat.
Well, yeah, there's only going to be one of those, but we are going to be taking you into a little bit of a treat. Of course, we are going to be taking a very quick break, so be sure to stay tuned before we return with our second match. So we'll see you guys back in a short few moments. What's up, guys? Welcome back. We're getting ready to jump into match number 2. Of course, we're going to be heading straight into the desert to see what the teams are going to be doing once presented with a little bit more of those ranged opportunities. And I mean, already a pretty crazy start, right? Over on Erangel, we saw 20 eliminations. We saw 14 eliminations. I mean, that is 32 of our 46 players, pretty much half of the lobby, getting picked up by only 2 of our teams.
The thing is, right, when we see a 14 elimination game, right? We've seen a few. We've seen 30 bombs before. It's nothing crazy, but 14 eliminations is like that's over here. That is the top of the top. Usually, that is a team that is absolutely going to town. And then Extreme Slayers said it's not good enough. No, we want even Stevens. We want 20 eliminations, 15 placements. Just give us a turkey dinner. The chicken dinner is too small. But now they're going to be moving on into Miramar. Now they're going to be moving on to a larger expanse, as you mentioned, a lot more, terrain to work with. It's the same block expanse, but less water, so that means more terrain to explore, and that does at least allow a little bit more space. So I'm wondering if we're not going to have a better spread of the team. So we're not going to have those early engagements. We're not going to have those foundational plays, which Extreme Slayers, they built that 20 elimination marker off of.
Yeah, they really worked. They really worked pretty hard on that, though, right? I mean, it wasn't just handed to them. So now a map that allows a little bit more of opportunity with regards to positioning, rotation, and the available options they've got once bouncing on an opponent. I think it could definitely be quite an exciting approach to come forward. But of course, we are going to be taking a quick look at our flight path here as well. Very westernly, nice and vertical. So it is going to be limiting and, at least for the time being, taking out quite a bit of access towards those eastern positions. So curious to see just how far these teams are going to be willing to get themselves situated. And now it's that time to hope for craziness, maybe even an eastern zone as well.
Ooh, an eastern zone with this flight path would be delicious. Then we do get that northeastern side. It's not completely thrown into the one side, DK, so there is still a little bit of room to work with, a little bit of wiggle room, as we wanted to call it, and the team should be able to get themselves nicely situated. Hopefully, we will be seeing a little bit more of that eastern shift, maybe jumping into a little bit of Impala action there towards the coastline, potentially up in towards that northeastern expanse. Hopefully we'll be seeing those teams take that space now that they have the space available, but it's going to be up to the teams, and if they're going to be respecting those boundaries, or if they're going to be jumping up with a little bit of action to start us off with.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, definitely an opportunity for the teams to stretch their legs a little bit, right?
Oh, yes.
To get themselves just, moving a little bit, feel the space, feel the freedom that Miramar does provide to an extent. But it doesn't seem like anybody wants to do that, right? Instead, we have congestion down south. We've got congestion up north, and Miramar could actually get off to a very sweaty start.
This is the beauty of a format like this, because we go week by week. We have a different few set of teams coming on in. It means there's no existent expectation of drop sites. There's no, okay, well, we know that this location is provided to this team. We know this location belongs to, let's say, Evolution Gaming. There's none of that. It's all a little bit of a surprise. You don't really know who you're going to be playing at the end of the weekend. And then when it does happen, you only have one shot on every single map to make your mark. So the teams, well, how better to do that, DK, than picking up some of those beautiful early eliminations?
Yeah, or like Forrest Gump says, life is like a box of chocolates. I mean, especially PUBG at this point is like a box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're going to get.
I like it.
Always going to be a surprise, right? Anybody could end up on your doorstep. And of course, it is going to be the players here from Sommat now getting ready to end up on the doorstep of Mazexas. So already an early game showing of aggression. Oh, Peaches on the money with that spray down, though.
Oh, no, but I love that movement in from Zane as well. I mean, they knew exactly what they needed to do. Had one player going for the north side, had one player going for the south side of the containers, peaked at the exact same time, immediate crossfire, and just pure, absolute clinical perfection coming through here from Sanhok just to find those eliminations as safely as possible. But now, there's still a few more players that are looking for a bit more. Peaches not stopping just there, already turning their attention here to Blinded by Win as well.
Yeah, well, you can't really blame them, right? That adrenaline is pumping, it is surging, and they want more, right? I get it, right? It's you want to get your fix. The only way to get your fix, though, is to get yourself situated in a good position, move forward, and potentially hope that there's someone else there for you to go toe-to-toe with. But yeah, looking at our positionings, especially up north, also waiting to see what that is going to lead to, right? Are we going to see the teams sticking close together, or will we see a little bit of that disengagement, similar to what we have happening here with Peralta now, which we can't really blame them for, right? It's they're the Lone Ranger, the only survivor now for the Mazexis team, but they are getting chased.
No.
Of course, in a hot pursuit there. Yeah, that door getting slammed shut in their face.
Oh my goodness. Again, if they could turn back and see the outlines of just every single member from MPX, Samot just chasing after their position. Oh, the fear that is in my bones. Unfortunately, it did come to fruition there. So MPX somewhat, I mean, they're going to be picking up that team elimination absolutely to perfection. I loved what they brought in with that starter, and that's really a way to make a mark, not only in terms of position. I mean, if you ever wanted to claim a location, that's definitely one way to do it. But now the rest of the teams, again, respecting those boundaries, they now need to make those rotations on in from that southern portion into the zone. And I'm already seeing GR Esports at least moving on in, as we mentioned, to that more eastern side, maybe closer to Impala, sticking to the coastline. And that could provide them a really good pathing into the zone as safe as possible.
Yeah, I think at this point, anything on the eastern side could be a really good decision to make, right? Even we see Extreme, they've also opted for that eastern positioning, so they're going to have a very comfortable early section of this game. So curious to see what the rest of the teams are going to be doing. I mean, even if we look up in towards the lovely Oasis that we've got there as well, right? The players there from Force T1 are also just keeping their distance. So, like, the teams up ahead, they can go about their business. They can go, just get aggressive and, take out a few of the other team players. And, we'll just come in potentially a little bit later on, looking to do a little bit of that cleanup action.
Team Claw, I must say, they have one of the furthest paths to take. They're all the way up into ruins on the northwestern side of Miramar. It's really not a place we get to see often, DK, and so they've got a bit of a trip, just like Wasted and Trixie Boy here, just right past Crystal, taking a couple of shots. Hopefully, surely we go back. Surely we go for revenge. You can't just let that one slide.
Oh, Crystal.
There we go.
And a little bit of trouble is going to be Trixie Boy, trying to apply all that extra bit of pressure they can find. But I mean, yeah, definitely the damage is there. Now, we do see that race coming through, blue zone coming in as well. Of course, there's going to be that extra little bit of damage being dealt by the blue, so you have to keep yourself patched on up. And it's all now just about that opportunity coming through here for Trixie Boy as they do find a few potential angles. Oh, the hit connects on through. Crystal now having to see if they can find a way out of this, and the only way out is going to be through the lobby.
I like it. Turning around, they weren't going to let a couple of pot shots be taken away from them, some HP bars being taken away from them without a fight, and at least a little bit of revenge at the end there. But I mean, speaking of revenge, I mean, the rest of the team that Crystal was, just hoping to waste time for, to give them the time to make that rotation on in, well, here they are. Now they're in a perfect position here for that containment already. Mercy finding Trixie Boy and, Wasted up into a very difficult position.
Ooh, Cupio also now in a world of danger as, Skills of Mind, they have not yet decided that they are satisfied. Instead, they are going to be looking to find the entirety of the Xinjiang team right there. The opportunities could be lining up in pretty close succession, but it does seem to be a little bit of a trade either which way. But so as we can see, right, they have quite the distance yet to cover to get themselves secured towards that zone. So hopefully at some point they are going to start to prioritize those rotations instead of trying to get all the eliminations.
Yeah, there might be a space for that, but I do feel like they're seeing a little bit of red at this point in time, DK. I don't know how they're going to be able to get themselves out of that one, because they do need to disengage completely, and they need to focus on that rotation. As you can see, it is a rough one, because right up ahead of them, we've got Blinded by Wind. We've got a few more teams that are going to be standing in their way, so it is going to be quite treacherous here. For Excuse, they're going to be quite well set up here towards San Martin. Again, a few visitors just on the southern portion. They're just down the road, if you could talk it that way. But for the time being, their neighbors shouldn't be causing them any trouble, at least for the time being, as the rest of the teams now need to get into center.
Yeah, I mean, their neighbors, of course, being Strangers BD. But I mean, it's Excuse only starting off with a 3-piece. which is definitely not ideal. And it's going to be Chronix now trying to find that box, trying to reach it, but unfortunately not being able to access it just yet. Meanwhile, you can see a little bit further up ahead, there's still the altercations towards the northern edge of the zone. That, of course, being the players from the side of the Friend Killers. Now, going to be losing one of their own players there. Instead, focusing for that positioning a little bit closer towards Hacienda del Patron.
And again, for Friend Killers, they want to reset themselves. They want to, you know, redeem themselves from that first Erangel as the first team to go out. They need to pick up something a little bit special in this Miramar, and then moving through with that momentum into Sanhok. But we'll have to wait and see what the other teams will be allowing or will not be allowing as we continue on with that rotation. Again, quite a bit of congestion there towards that southern side, as we do have quite a few teams that made that trek in. But what I love about this is we had such a disparity between that flight path and that zone, but already we're seeing so many more teams that have opted on in from that northeastern position. So we have a very good spread of these teams into this next zone. It's not looking as clustered as what we saw on Erangel, at least initially. So as we can see there on the mini-map, it's looking pretty good. There's quite a good use of space.
Yeah, there's a good use of space, but also a little bit of contention coming through. I mean, we got the players there from Excuse and Strangers BD held up in that San Martin region. But the rest of the zone looking pretty healthy, right, as you pointed out. And we're yet to see where those teams towards the southern edge are going to be looking to get themselves situated. I mean, that, of course, being skills of mine, having to still find a bit of an approach into zone. We got the players there from Blinded by Win also now pushing in on that southern edge. And of course, just a little bit further up ahead of where we see our squads up in the zone, right? XO zone are going to be holding a little bit more to that southern edge.
Yeah, just trying to see what they can find here over from La Bendita. Just, you know, sending out a few welcoming shots, if we could call it that, to the surrounding teams, just letting them know where they're at, if they need to pop over for a cup of sugar or maybe a cup of coffee. They're going to be welcoming anyone at this point in time, anyone that can allow them a few of those eliminations, because they definitely picked up some massive pacing in that first week, and now they want to replicate that. They finished off third, they want to go even higher, DK. Why not?
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Now it is going to be Excuse trying to find the position here onto Strangers, but Strangers, no strangers to the aggressions. They just come pushing out of that smoke, finding head after head, and such a formidable performance coming through here from Strangers BD. You can see Excuse now having to try and pick up the pieces. Down to Rush they go. We have mollies flying all over the place, and that is going to be the end of Excuse as Strangers BD lock in 3 more eliminations.
We're picking up some pacing here. Strangers BD, we mentioned it. Those glimmers of hope that we saw in the first week. Again, we started off that first Erangel, and Strangers were one of the only teams I was talking about. I wasn't even thinking about level X, but they have an opportunity now to continue that momentum. Already, they're leading the lobby in terms of eliminations for the time being. But if they can keep it up, then we could have a different story on our hands. I don't know if it's going to be a 20 elimination sort of story like we had on Erangel just yet, but the potential is always there.
Yeah, the potential is definitely there. So let's see who's going to be in the running for that. I mean, Strangers definitely looking like they stand quite a bit of a chance to accomplish something similar to what we saw. But as we now look towards that northern side, we see the players here from Team Claw. They haven't yet found a single elimination, but also they've already come into this match with a 2-piece. So that is going to be limiting their options somewhat.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little. But Exozone already finding 5 rivers here with a lovely follow-up there with the nades as well. In the meantime, Purge of Fire are looking to jump on into the action here, seeing where they can jump on and seeing how they can approach this angle. But for the time being, V, they're just keeping their heads on a swivel. They're trying to close off all of the opportunities, all of the angles, and make sure that 5 Rivers do not have that opportunity just for the time being. Meanwhile, GR Esports, I mean, over here towards Junkyard, and for the time being, pretty isolated. We do have quite a few teams up to the northern side of them, but they're not making that rotation down to where GR currently find themselves.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting approach coming through. But what's also quite interesting is that the players here from Extreme, they've been reduced to 1, right? It's going to be only Snow trying to survive on that very edge, just looking on as the players here from V and Purge of Fire are going to be going at each other's throats. And I mean, Rhythm still trying to find a little bit of that rhythm. Maybe they'll be able to get it as V just hunker down in the compound, just looking to not make any noise and not give any indication to Purge of Fire as to where they could be situated within that compound.
Just to add on to what you were saying about Extreme Slayers, reduced to 1, and they have 0 eliminations. And I don't know what that 1 is going to be able to do, but it's definitely not going to be able to pick up 20 eliminations. So it feels like they definitely had a target put on their back from that first map, and now everyone is done and dusted with them. Now the rest of the teams, they are fighting to see who's going to be taking that winner chicken dinner.
Yeah, that's just the way the cookie crumbles at the end of the day. But speaking about it at the end of the day, right, we're still some way away from that as we are now nearing the end of our third phase. And of course, we do see Vortex trying to climb up that hillside. We've got the players here from MP also going to be holding on to this lovely Minas Generales position. But things are going to be somewhat challenging, right? We got Meter Shot also on that southern approach. But what I'm liking about Meter Shot's position here is, yes, they've got a slight bit of an angle in towards the players there from MP Somot, but also then to the players then from Exo Zone, moving in from that southern edge of zone.
Oh, a little bit of action here as Mumbai out in the open is just going to be perfectly picked up here by Solo from Xinjiang, moving on in now from this southern portion. And they had such a late rotation, DK, but somehow, some way, they've not only put themselves in a prime position to pick up at least the 1 from Exo Zone, but to move on further, they have a beautiful pathing into this next phase.
Yeah, and you want that pathing to try and secure your rotational angles here. But, well, this is going to be Xinjiang now looking for that opportunity, right? Taking the more eastern approach. I mean, that's not really a bad idea, right? We've got Wasted from Skills of Mind positioned a little bit further up ahead. Snow just beyond that. So there's only 2 players that could potentially be posing a little bit of a threat to this rotation.
Take a look at this. Rotations. The name of the game, especially at a stage like this with that entire zone shift on into the eastern side for Potencias, definitely looking to reset themselves, to redeem themselves from that Erangel match. But here comes Force to Wanna here. A little bit of a scout out there with the vehicles, so they have the information. Now, players, they just need to jump out of the vehicles. They just need to close up this spacing between themselves and Luffy, and then they could be finding themselves and gifting themselves a lovely elimination.
Oh,
immediate.
Yeah.
Immediate.
Yeah. I mean, that nade was on point. There's not much else that we can say about that. But now, it is going to be an opportunity for the players here from Purge of Fire also to try and just establish some form of dominance coming in onto this northern edge. Again, such an interesting position to play from. I mean, this ridge could be doing them quite a few favors, as they do still have the players there from GR just south of them. But, I mean, still a tough position. V up against the players here from Claw. Yeah, it's going to be a dance around the building to see who will be able to lock in this potential elimination.
Oh, and Claw, as we mentioned, right, they had to make that massive rotation all the way from Ruins up here into Junkyard now. So they do not want to be going down without a fight. They do not want to let things slide. After what a journey they had to take just to get to this point, surely it doesn't end here. Surely they take it further.
Well, let's see whether or not Ruby is going to put that M249 to good use and, you know, maybe find something up into the 2 players here from the Claws team, right? It could be either Kari or Gomez. But they're trying to play the quiet game, and I can't really fault them for that, right? They only started off with a 2P, so that really does impact the strategy coming through. But as you now look on towards Ryan, they are going to be just limbering themselves up, also sitting with the M249. So, gotta say, right, V, they've got they're ready. They want to take a fight, regardless of who and whatever it is, right? M249's at the ready, 300 bullets between the 2 of them. So, yeah, they're ready for a fight. They're back in heat.
Oh, yes. No, they are absolutely back in heat. And if you want to talk about trick or treat, if Team Claws make that knock on the door, if they open up the door expecting a little bit of candy, a little bit of a surprise, all they will be finding is lead. Absolutely 150 delicious lead, at least here from Ryan, as he's holding that potential rotation here. So if Gomez can find this nade, then maybe there's an opportunity for them to get out.
Yeah, but I'm loving what Gomez is doing here. It's just, testing the water, looking to see if Ryan is going to be flinching. But they can't spend too much time here, as we do know that blue zone is going to start making its way on through. Oh, Ryan having to abandon that initial position. A little bit of that third-party peeking coming through here. But as we jump over onto Wolf, we can see that GR are keeping their eyes absolutely peeled on the place here from blinded by Win. But here comes Ruby. Oh, down goes Ruby. Ryan, the next one up for a bit of an altercation. Oh, the M249 not able to beat the UMP power.
Look, it's got the bullets. It does absolutely have the bullets, which for me is always great because I miss, in any case, the first 100 shots. Anyway, it just does not have the fire rate to match up to the likes of, let's say, UMP, which we've seen before. DK has been the Miramar gun, so unfortunately that fire rate is just going to win out that mobility, that agility from the players. That is just what edged them over that elimination. So as we take a look at it now, who's going to be next up on the chopping block? We do see a little bit of action there towards Purge as they do take that one knock. There is going to be quite a little bit of a fight there for that center position of the zone. GR right now in sole contention of that position, but Exo Zone moving on in from that southwestern side potentially could give them the heat.
Yeah, they could definitely give them the heat, but I mean, they are experiencing quite a bit of heat already, right? That blue zone not going to be kind to anybody at this point. And Blinky now having a little bit of a setup coming through with that utility there, just doing their due diligence. We can see Solo off in the distance. So curious to see what the players there from Xinjiang are going to be looking to bring to the table. But now Perched of Fire having to defend the position, so close to finding access to that zone, but yet still so far as the players here from GR Esports are just looking to bully them into potential submission. Oh!
They did so, DK. They definitely did so. Just at least a tad bit, but again, this is where things get interesting. We see that zone shift now just favoring Exo Zone. We see blinded by Wind just towards the northern side. Now the rest of the teams, they need to move on in. GR Esports, they need to focus on rotating south into zone, finding a good position, but look at the options they have available. Look at how many teams they need to be able to take out before they can make any sort of safe navigation into safety.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. I mean, 14 players doesn't seem like all that much, but it's still a decent number of participants coming through here. And now the due diligence being done here by the players from Exo Zone. Unfortunately for them, there's no one there to really receive anything. The rest of the teams instead are going to be situated up towards that northern side. We do, however, see Snow making a bit of a dash to that southern approach. But it is the end of the road as the players there from Extreme Slayers get sent on their merry way. Meanwhile, it's going to be MP Somot now looking to dash in on towards the north, coming in right behind it on top of the players here from GR Esports.
Oh, surprise, surprise, and they clean house, DK. Absolutely brilliant. Not only do they take this position back, but they need to quickly, and very quickly, I might add, reset before Exo Zone actually close the gap and take them out.
But it's a 3v3, right? So both teams having equal numbers, not necessarily equal opportunity, as we do see the players there from Exo holding on to a little bit more of a favorable position with regards to the zone, but that's not going to stop someone from sending out those nades, trying to reach on through. We know Peaches might have it in the bag. Already 6 eliminations only for Peaches, so let's see. All right, that's for the entirety of MP, but here we go. Blinky now just ducking, diving, and weaving through the smoke, trying to find that angle. Oh, absolutely relentless effort. Almost secures the hit, but up comes the nade. Oh, Exo on the very edge.
Looking at this rotation, still a few more utilities being sent on out. Exo Zone trying to close the gap, trying to get that information, but Peaches is just being an absolute nuisance, absolutely blocking their path. They can't get anywhere closer because every time they try and make a dash, there's a utility, there's a shot coming through from Peaches, allowing their teammates to reset themselves and get back up to their full 3.
Well, big brain play is definitely being shown here, but now it is up to 11, looking to see if they can quickly get that mid in. Yes, it is secured. But will they be able to hold off the advances coming through from Somod as they move up somewhat relentlessly? Oh, it is going to be WKNS just on the very edge. Spots out 11, and that is all 11 needs to secure that victory. It's going to be Exozone walking away absolutely victorious. 12 eliminations to their name. 1,662 damage being dealt.
That was quite a close one. I mean, in those final moments, I thought it would have been done. I thought Peaches had done enough to get themselves into a winning stage, but Exozone, they managed to close it out. And who knows, maybe it's the momentum from the previous week, if you want to call it experience, and they brought in that experience today, picking up that winner chicken dinner. But for MPX, I mean, just absolutely well done to them. They picked up huge eliminations there just alongside Exo.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty impressive performance. I mean, MPX finishing off with 15 in second place. So that is going to be a lovely 27-pointer bomb being dropped there for them. And of course, then XO walking away with 12 alongside those 15 is going to put them on 27. So it's going to be very, very close to see how that overall standing is going to be changing up. But a very, very satisfying performance coming in over on Miramar. You got to commend the players there from Claw. I mean, only 2 players in, and they managed to secure themselves a 3rd place finish with 2 eliminations.
Only 2 players in, and they had to make a trek all the way from Ruins to Junkyard. Yes, absolutely. Congratulations to them. But as we know, we have to give it up to our player of the match, Zane, coming on in from MPX Samot, absolutely picking up huge eliminations for the team. 6 eliminations, 1.3k damage. So they definitely laid down the law where it needed most.
Yeah, you can't fault any of that, and a very, very satisfactory performance coming through here. But of course, speaking about factory, right, we need to see just where all this factory action led to. Our 4 teams, of course, just churning out those eliminations. That is going to be the players there from Somot sitting on 15. We've got Zone then sitting on 12 eliminations, with Strangers locking in 6. And of course, then the Friend Killers walking away with 5 eliminations, but a very healthy dose of damage rather being dealt in this match once again.
It is absolutely crazy. Again, when you compare that the first matchup there from Extreme Slayers, they also had around about 2.2k damage with 20 eliminations. It is a much better conversion rate than what we see here from MPX and Mod, but they're not far off. 15 eliminations is still a disgusting amount of eliminations to be picking up in a single map, and they should absolutely be just patting themselves on the back, saying that was a brilliant Miramar to keep us going on the overall standings. How that's really going to make a difference with the fact that we have to consider that Extreme Slayers did not really pick up any points. They definitely didn't pick up the crazy points they found on Erangel. So maybe that's going to allow them to close that gap almost immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really difficult one to know exactly how that is going to happen. But of course, to give us some hope of an indication, we are going to be looking at our eliminations and damage chart here. It is looking pretty steep on the front end of that chart, as we can see that 15 damage and the 2200, 15 eliminations rather, and the 2200 damage being dealt. But the conversion rate gets a little bit better as we move a little bit further on down, right? I mean, still 12 eliminations coming through there from EXO, resulting off the back of 1600 damage. It's pretty decent, right? You can't really fault anything on that.
I mean, no, they even stole a little bit of an elimination away or two, or just helped 1 or 2 out. But it was a really good setup for them to bring in that action. And again, the only thing that is basically staying the same from Erangel to Miramar is how top-heavy these matches have been. It's how top-heavy the scoreboard has been for our teams, really. I mean, your first, 5 to 6 teams really running away with the points, especially our first 2 teams picking up the most amount of eliminations, and then it trickles down significantly. I mean, look how many teams we have on 0 to 1 elimination. It's looking scarce on the other side of the scoreboard here. So it now has to reset into Sanhok. They have to shake it off and they have to bring back that action. But now we can still see how close Extreme Slayers are to being taken over by Exozone, who are only 3 points away from taking that first place.
Yeah, I mean, as we know, rather the players there from Extreme, having a little bit of a tough run this time around, yeah, not much changing up. The only thing that they were able to secure were those rank points, but is going to be XO Zone now looking to close that gap, only 3 points away. Of course, the players there from MP Somot just 2 points behind XO Zone. So the contention is there, and it's going to all boil down to what this next match will bring. So it's pretty much between our top 4 teams to see who's going to be sitting in which position. But yeah, maybe we could see a little bit of a performance come through then from the players there of Xinjiang, right? They are so close, but we could say the same thing about Blinded by Win. Only 4 teams are going to be moving through to the next stage. That's it.
Ooh.
Only the top 4.
Ooh, that is steep numbers to try and get yourself into. I mean, to get yourself into the top 4 with the way that these matches have been going. Again, Mazexis would be your target. If you're not currently in the top 4, just aim for Mazexis. That has to be the plan here. Hopefully MPX or any of the others are not going to have as crazy of a match as they did in their respective winners in their respective winning games. But now it all comes down to the most chaotic map that you could possibly bet anything on. To jump into Sanhok now and to say, well, yeah, we need to have a massive game if we want to close up that gap on the overall standings, and to bet it all on Sanhok, DK. Yeah, that is the definition of trick or treat.
Yeah, I mean, well, Xinjiang Blinded by Win, for Potentia, GR Esports, and Team Claw. I mean, we could even maybe add Excuse into that, right? They are in a position where they could potentially hit that 4th place, right? Depending on how Sanhok goes, right? So there is going to be a little bit of pressure on those teams that I just mentioned, looking to see if they can actually uphold the necessary and required level of performance to secure those needed points. But, of course, that will be happening once we return, because first we are going to be hopping into a very quick break to get everything locked and loaded and ready to roll before we jump over into Sanhok. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll be back in a short few moments. What's up, guys? We're back, ready to jump into the action, heading straight over into Sanhok. Of course, this is going to be our very last match right here on week number 2, the semi-finals. I get to see who's going to be moving on and who will have to try again. But yeah, we're getting even closer. That flight path is about to be delivered, about to be shown, and we are going to be moving into that. Now, is any particular team that you think are going to be stepping it up in this next match?
You know, if we take Erangel as a benchmark, then obviously we have to think about Extreme Slayers. Maybe they just need those hot drops. Maybe they need that chaos to be able to build up another, crazy elimination gap. But if we take in terms of consistency, if we talk about that, then I'm putting my money on Exo Zone, because they've been that team to find themselves in the final moments. They've been that team to get themselves into the final stages. So I feel like they can bring it home once again.
Well, let's see whether or not it's going to be on the board for Extreme Slayers to have another successful run. I mean, they definitely are going to be pushing towards a little bit more of that northern positioning, right? Potentially up in towards Hatin or just that open field, but the zone is going to force them to kind of backtrack on that, right? As you can see, Lala taking an instant turnaround right there. Like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't
Never
push
mind.
all the way out. Maybe just drop a little bit closer to that zone.
Ooh, but the camps are looking stacked already. Camp Bravo's got a little bit of that hot drop action. Camp Alpha might have a few visitors as well, maybe a few more than they were expecting as the teams are going to be moving into their respective positionings. But overall, I mean, with only 15 teams in this one, it's definitely looking a lot more scarce. We're not seeing as much of those crazy clusters, and we've got, well, half the size that we were used to on Miramar.
Yeah, of course. Who's not going to be really worrying about the size at this point in time is going to be the players there from V and the Metasport team, right? We can see them getting ready for a little bit of action up in towards that lovely Camp Bravo. But as we now look over on towards Tom, they're just going to be making their merry way on through, ensuring that they've got sufficient loot before braving the altercation. And V also having a very decent spread. I mean, quite the opposed play coming through from either team, right? Meter Shot taking a little bit more of a closer grouped angle here in comparison to the players here from V, who are trying to instead surround them.
Oh, I mean, V, they've got the numbers advantage. At least they did. They did for a mere second before Johnny found that perfect angle there onto Ruby. So now it's even Steven. Now they're on equal playing ground. So now Meter Shot, they can take that trigger. They can get a little bit more cheeky. Before, they were sticking to their guns. They were huddling up safety and numbers because they knew they were already on the back foot just purely because they started off with only 3 players. Now, DK, it's a whole different ball game. So now we might be seeing those shifts in the gameplay here.
Yeah, we could definitely see these shifts come through here, but you know, I want to see what Johnny is going to do, right? A good showing coming in there, but as we quickly jump off to a little bit further away towards our western edge, there's going to be the players here from Force Tijuana and the players coming through from Skills of Mind, being in somewhat close proximity to each other, but not too immediate, right? So there is that opportunity for Force Tijuana now to maybe get themselves a little bit more favorably set up with regards to the zone itself.
We also have a few lovely little bit of a potential engagement there. It's closer towards Trifecta. We've got not only Exozone, but we also have the team there of Friend Killers right alongside Evolution, I believe it is. So there's also some massive potential there for a little bit of action to build up later on. But for the time being, the closest contention we have, the immediate contention we have, is here between Meter Shot and, of course, V, as they are moving in and trying to close this one up, because all of this, right, we know it is happening outside of the zone. And again, Sanhok, it's a quicker dash into the zone than any other map, but at this point in time, DK, we know the longer that these battles get drawn out, you know, wars of attrition on Sanhok only mean one thing, and that's a third party that's looming in the vicinity.
Yeah, and also with the increased damage coming through on the blue zone, you know, teams really can't afford to play that heal strat. So it does change up the dynamic ever so slightly. But of course, speaking about changing up the dynamic, we are seeing the players there from, XO Zone getting into the altercation towards that lovely Pine 9 position. Of course, the players from Friend Killers looking to oppose them. But all the way in Camp Bravo, it's going to be a bit of a standoff, right? Meter Shot holding their ground. V holding their ground. Not going to be looking to do anything crazy just yet. Unless, of course, your name's Johnny, right? They're going to be looking to try and line up a few of those hits. But now as we jump back over onto the players here from Mazex's and Xingyang, everybody's just trying to find that next approach into the zone.
It's going to be an interesting one. As we know, we have quite a few teams here on the outskirts already, starting off with a little bit of action as Exozone picks up just 1 or 2, having gone through from those rotations on into, well, what is more just closer towards that southwestern portion. As I said, just close, just off of Trifecta, right? But the rest of the teams now, they need to make their rotations in. They need to get themselves closer and closer to safety here. And Extreme Slayers, already, they're starting to look for those opportunities. They're starting to hunt for those engagements before they get into the action closer to the zone.
Yeah, and of course you always like a little bit of that cave action. We do see Dark
Yes.
over at cave, but unfortunately there's no one to really contest Dark for that position. Meanwhile, as we jump back over on towards the place here from V, oh, it is going to be the place here from Meter Shot, just trying to double down on the aggression, already just ripping them up in little tiny pieces, sending them packing, and that of course then results in only 14 teams now remaining.
And again, Johnny just stepping up to the plate. 4 eliminations. Thanks to Johnny. I mean, there's a pun that I want to make here, but I won't because it's also Halloween, and then you just say like,
What?
yes,
Here's Johnny.
Yes, thank you, DJ. Thank you. I just didn't want to do it because I've already made disgusting puns tonight already. But now, rotations. Team Claws and EXO, they have a bit of an interesting one here. As we mentioned, there was quite a few teams closer towards the center, thereby None. Now those teams are split up. Now those teams have disengaged because they're looking for safer pastures. But now Team Claws moving into the back foot here of EXO Zone. Maybe they can catch them off guard.
Yeah, maybe they could, but I mean, Team Claws, they need to be careful because we've got the friend killers just behind there. But it is going to be Sama though to start us off here. Finds that first initial engagement, but now Mumbai, they won't want to get taken down early on again. Right now, instead, are going to be looking to just apply a little bit of that defensive strategy. But as we jump over into boot camp, is going to be Mazexes now, just trying to get themselves well away from the utilities that are being sent in their direction. I mean, I can't really blame them. It is the players here from the Extreme Slayers, as well as the squad just behind them, looking to roll on through. That, of course, being none other than MP Somot. So the heat is definitely on in boot camp.
Oh yes, Extreme Slayers, if they want any opportunity to keep their first place finish, if they want any opportunity or any just chance to stay in this, then they need to survive. They need to not only survive, but move on forward into the zone and pick up some points here. They need to just further that gap, otherwise it could be all but naught. We can see so many teams now trying to close the gap. Exo Zone, they were looking pretty good. And now we've still got a few more contenders as well, moving on closer and closer to that center zone. None now being actually contested by Exo Zone here and in complete control. MPX, just finding the needle through the haystack to just find that angle onto Lala there.
Yeah, good angle indeed. Oh, cheese cut. Not going to be done with that one just yet. I know I said cut, it says cute, but either which way, cheese cut just sounds a little bit nicer. But either way, cheese cute, cheese cut, whoever, cheese is going to be moving on forward, looking to secure the players here from the Extreme Slayers. Up comes the nade, just narrowly missing that opportunity on the window. It is instead going to be Zane to fall. Snow also getting quite a bit of damage being dealt towards them. But up comes Peaches. And I get to see if they can double down. Will they find Snow just up ahead? Yes, is the answer. The trade is in, and the Extreme Slayers getting sent on their merry way.
Oh my goodness. Now you know what this means. This means that first place finish, that first place for the second week of the semi-finals is up for grabs. Only a couple of points away and someone could be taking the mantle. Now Mazexes, they were one of the teams that were in contention. We know they're currently in top 4, but will they stay there? Or will someone else be taking their spot for that qualification? Now, as Mazexes moves on in here, coming through from that northern side, they have quite a few teams within the vicinity. And again, MP is going to be that looming threat moving on in from boot camp as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to turn this one around.
Yeah, well, the Mazexes, they definitely have a player that can make a bit of noise for them, right? Who better than Karen to do exactly that, right? Perched on high, having a little bit of a vantage point down below, potentially up in towards Painan. I think it's all going to come down to where this next zone is going to be taking them. But Mazexes, if they want to chase that pole position, right, they need to not only secure placement points, but also have a good, healthy dose of those eliminations to come through. But looking at where the shift has taken us, I mean, Painan still looking like a good option for the XO Zone team. But look at that. Evolution are going to be holding on to nearly smack dab center zone. Some good compounds they've got there.
Absolutely. And again, a little bit of just a tribute to Cave coming on through there from the southern side. But unfortunately, I do suspect that zone is potentially just going to center on up. If it does go to cave, I think I will just have a happy dance for the rest of the evening, but the likelihood of that happening is not looking too good. We still have Purge and Friend Killers needing to move on into zone, and if they do just do a straight dash into that zone, they're going to be either finding Force Tijuana or they're going to be finding what I believe is GR Esports. So it's going to be a tough one. Already Claws applying the pressure here to GR as well, so they've got their work cut out for them.
So you honestly think that there's no likely chance for you to do a happy dance today?
Reverse psychology. Shh.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just checking because if you're gonna do the happy dance, I'm watching. I want to see the happy dance happen. You know, I have to be the eyewitness because nobody else can see it. So it is what it is. But yeah, we got Mazexes and the players there from MP Somot now moving in on those northern angles. GR trying to get at least the southern edge under lockdown, while the players here from Claw are looking to find a bit of an approach, right? Somewhat of a spread angle, but I mean, it's an acceptable spread coming in on Sanhok, right? Not too aggressive, not too wide. But that lean from inactive, that was a pretty wide one, though.
Oh, it's just what they needed. Just that extra few pixels can make the world of difference. Once again, Peaches on the prowl here, just being an absolute menace. Joined by, of course, the cheese cute, or the cheese cut, as DK likes to say. But Mazexes right now, they are getting hit from all angles. Only 2 members up here towards the high-rise that can really do anything about it, but they can't rescue their teammates. They're going to have to just let them go down.
Yeah, but Mazex is now in so much trouble, right? They were in contention for that pole position, but looking at how these things are turning out, I'm not quite sure whether or not that is going to be on the board. However, we do see quite a bit of aggression coming through. I mean, even the players here from Full Potentia, we haven't seen much from them today just yet. Now, there's quite a bit of pressure coming through on Raika, trying to just survive this one. But Meter Shot arriving quite aggressively, already sitting on 6 eliminations, or 5 eliminations rather, to their name.
Oh, picking up a little bit more. Now, come on. Let's go for that team elimination here. MPX Samot, they have smelt the blood. They have smelt a little bit of action just around the block here. So now Sao is going to make the dash on in, but Peaches just too hot on the trigger. And that's one, but there is still one looming. Karen is going to be just making an absolute quick dash out of this action because they now need to run the banner of Mazex is still alive and well if they want to get themselves some placements for the team.
Yeah, but a very important lesson being taught right there. If you want to silence the Karen, all you got to do is put them on the edge of zone and rush, and that is, how you get the job done. Meanwhile, there's going to be Friend Killers also now moving on forward, but out comes the mollies, the nades, the pressure is on, and it's going to be Zane to come through with that M249 cleanup as Karen and the rest of the players there get sent on their merry way.
Ooh. That is it. Mazex is going to be out once again. An opportunity there on the overall standings. If one of these teams that are still alive can pick up an absolutely banger of a match, if they can absolutely just demolish the points, they can pick up those qualification positions. But now, these teams, they have to make those rotations in. Force Tijuana, as we take a look at it, coming on in now from the southwestern portion, going to be going right past GR and Friend Killers if they want to make a straight dash into zone. If they want to go a little bit more north, well, guess who's waiting? It's Exo Zone. So how they're going to navigate this one is going to come down to the wire for them. And again, DK, one decision could mean the entirety. It could mean that you're in zone, or it could mean you're back in the lobby.
Yeah, I mean, it could mean so many different things, but what it is going to mean for the players here from Claw is a potential opportunity to get themselves situated on that southern edge. But Exo Zone, they've got a few other plans. As we can see them now just peeking down towards the southern side. Force Tijuana, looking for a bit of an angle to sneak up. Up ahead is going to be none other than the players there from Evolution Gaming. Feeling the heat, feeling that pressure come through. As we can see the players there from MP Somot now also just descending down upon them. Oh! It's going to be Boy getting sacked on that one.
Nice one. Nice play on words. But as we take a look at it, Friend Killers, well, Yeah, the name is starting to change around a little bit here. They are in a spot of trouble as Force 1 is absolutely just blowing through the competition, applying pressure after pressure, and looking like they want to continue the situation here. DK, they have an opportunity, a massive one, if they can get past GR Esports.
Yep, the opportunity definitely is there. Of course, Dark also going to be looking to create a few of their own opportunities here, trying to find that head up on towards the players here from Shenyang, but it's going to be Crystal to get traded on down, sent on their merry way. Dark not going to be waiting around for the players there from Shenyang to push up just yet. Instead, prioritizing a little bit of that hard cover. Can't really fault that, but now GR Esports are going to be holding steady. I'm loving the southern positioning that they've got, right? Really just showing up with that kind of defensive strategy.
Again, so close to cave. So close.
Mm-hmm.
It's so far. So no happy dance for me today. Sorry. It's just not going to happen. But again, the teams, they need to do a little bit of a dance of their own, DK. They need to swim across. They need to get themselves into the zone. And now, as you mentioned, this beautiful position that GR hold, again, they have an opportunity of just shooting fish in a barrel. It is going to be potentially easy pickings for themselves if they can find the right angles and if the teams can just get the right timing. But now, as we take a look at it, you can see MPX shot also getting a few hits from a very far off Mercy that just seems to be finding the connection here onto MPX Samot.
Yeah, Cave doing some good things, at least for Mercy, right? But are they going to be merciless? We don't know. I mean, you know, Shenyang, they might be merciless pretty soon, depending on how long Mercy is able to survive all the way out in that blue zone. But as we look on towards that western side, you can see things looking pretty tough, especially now for the XO zone team, as they are too trying to find themselves back in the zone. 11 and Mumbai are going to be the only two hopefuls. Not quite sure whether or not Blinky is going to be able to make it. Oh, 11 gets found as well. And this is where things get quite dangerous. Mumbai now going to be opting for that blue zone heal strat, but GR in the meantime going to be looking to find a bit of an approach back into the safety of the zone.
Oh, but look at that. The zone is going to just move on up to the northern side. So it's actually favoring the team here from both Meter Shot and MPX Samot. But Meter Shot, obviously, just with the cover they have, they're looking a little bit better. MPX Samot, they need to get that recovery going. And while any other team that is still within the vicinity need to make a dash on into the zone or need to make a dash on into the healing stocks here because they need to be able to stay alive. This is going to be a bit of that war of attrition when we take these three teams into account. Neither is going to be looking to make the first move because as soon as they do, that's potentially the chances in Sanhok completely out the window.
Yeah, you gotta risk it though, right? If you don't risk it, you don't know what you could potentially get. Yeah, well, you maybe could get a biscuit along the way, or you could get a nice line of sight onto a Lambo parked out in between a few buildings. I mean, it's a little bit sus on Sanhok, right? Who brings a Lambo to Sanhok? But we also know that Mercy is now just trying to survive the damage being brought on by the blue. Cheese cute, cheese cut, whichever cheese is going to be keeping that angle steady and dark now. Feeding the pressure there. Zane comes through with a beautiful spray, and this is now GR having to backpedal ever so slightly.
Oh, but this is massive here for Meter Shot. Again, they've got two players still alive in this one. If they can just stay quiet and let MPX Samot and GR just, battle things out, they could be looking at an opportunity for that first place finish, especially with the zone now centering towards them and just giving them that extra blessing. But how is this going to turn out between XR and MP?
Yeah, it's definitely MP somewhat looking to clean house as they come pushing on forward, locking in those elims. And now being in a position where they can turn all their attention onto the players here from Meter Shot. But it is Johnny positioned up ahead alongside their teammate there. As we can see, RD also going to be holding strong, cooking up those smokes, the nades, the mollies, everything at the ready. But will it be enough? As they've got the hard cover to try and utilize.
I mean, right now, MPX Samot picking up such a beautiful amount of eliminations. I can't really see how anyone can close the gap for them on the overall rankings, but they need to push through this.
Yeah, and it all now at least lies on the shoulders of Adi. Try to find that spray. They do find Zane. Now is going to be Cheese looking to push on forward. But could this be the play now? Meter shot so close to potentially clutching this one out. Up comes Peaches. Gonna be quite a bit of a thorn in the side here for Meter shot. But the blue zone is not going to make things any easier. Up comes the hits though. Oh, S12K action. Now, Cheese up and ready. Zane right there alongside them, but 80 not having the health to continue the fight, and instead it is going to be the players there from MP Somot locking in that victory. 17 eliminations with 2,610 damage being dealt.
There we go. I think that might have been enough. But we'll let someone else do the math at least, because I definitely do not want to. Either way, that was a beautiful showing there from NPX and Mod. I feel like every engagement they took, it was just brilliant. Even that one there up against GR, not a single player dropped, not even a single HP bar dropping below the red marker. So that just tells you how clinical they were. Even in the final tense moments of a map like Sanhok, it feels like their composure never wavered. They really had a plan into every single engagement, even the craziness there towards the end. So massive congratulations there towards FPX and Mod. If they did enough, if they jumped on into that first place, it definitely is well deserved.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100% on that one. I gotta say, I mean, Peaches brought in a really strong performance. We did see some really formidable angles, you know, and some crazy shots being played there. But you gotta give it to Zane, right? 8 eliminations, there's no arguing with it. Zane just did the business. They went a little bit insane as well, you know, just being a little bit trigger happy there. But there's nothing wrong with it. Sanhok being the perfect map to just let it loose. But also then hot on their heels. I gotta say, Johnny also bringing it in with a good performance. Also those 8 eliminations. And that's the kind of a performance that you want to see, especially in such a limited event, right? You only have 3 matches to prove yourself. That's it. So you just gotta bear it all out on the battlefield.
Absolutely, and that's why we get a little bit of that chaos as well. I mean, the fact is, we had Extreme Slayers jumping and starting the day with a 35 points in map. The rest of the maps didn't quite match that, really didn't quite match that whatsoever, because the rest of the teams then started to step it up on as well, and you jump from Erangel to Miramar to Sanhok. I mean, it's a crazy setup, jumping on into the last map being Sanhok again, betting it all on the craziest close quarter combat map we have, and yet the teams still find a way to make it their own, to make the opportunities really just shine brightly for them. So as I said, whoever does take this first place opportunity, who does take that first place spot, they deserved it, because it came through with the consistency and the clinical performances that we saw today.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that we can really fault based on what we saw coming through on this last Sanhok. Yeah, there were a few instances where things were a little bit surprising, but of course, you know, yeah, let's take a bit of a look and see what the breakdown is, and you know, just where everyone finds themselves. Of course, our MVP is none other than Johnny. Coming in with those 8 eliminations and 1,269 damage being dealt. So yeah, well played though to the players here from MS. Well, yeah, Meter Shot, right? I'm getting confused. Yeah, I was thinking about
Meter Shot. Yeah.
Yeah, so similar. But either which way, I mean, Meter Shot, they did a really good job here.
Yeah, they're doing it on purpose, just to confuse us. Absolutely. I mean, MPX,
sure.
MSX. Come on,
sure.
Come on. Look, Johnny not going to be breaking the record of the most eliminations in a single map for today for a single individual, but they absolutely stepped up massively there over towards bootcamp here for Meter Shot to make sure that the team was able to actually survive that onslaught against V, who had the better numbers. That was the beginning journey here for Meter Shot. So huge plays here by the individuals today. And of course, we know there's a few other stats that we need to take a look at. I mean, the way that these teams brought in some of the damage numbers that they outputted in a single Sanhok. I mean, look at that, 2.6k damage for MPX. Samot's Meter Shot not far off with 1.8, 1.1 for GR, and Friend Killers also, hey, making an appearance there with 600 damage as well.
Yeah, but a good conversion rate, right? Only 37 damage, not resulting in elimination. I mean, well, you can't convert 37 necessarily, right? Unless you're super fortunate with a good seal coming through there. But yeah, some pretty good numbers being shown here. We gotta love that 17 eliminations coming through for the players there from MP Somot. I mean, it is looking just absolutely glorious. And I think that brings us to the next question, right? Is that going to be sufficient for them to potentially steal a bit of a position away from our strong contenders, you know, in the top 4?
That is going to be the question. I mean, we even had Mazexis going out, so that opportunity to get into the top 4 is still lying in wait for another team. But we do have to take a look at those elims and damage numbers, as we saw once again, still extremely top heavy. I mean, 17 double digits for our first place team just in terms of overall points, and then Meter Shot following it up with only single digit numbers. And it's just getting crazier and crazier. The gap that's building between first and second is getting disgustingly large. And then as we move on down into the graphs, of course, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, it's Sanhok. You do come to expect that there's going to be teams absolutely racking up the eliminations.
Yeah, but I mean, it was interesting to see, you know, teams like Force Tijuana and even Mazexis only picking up 2 and 1, right? I mean, also V only picking up that 1 elimination. And aside from those eliminations, it's pretty empty moving further on down. So, I mean, Sanhok being what Sanhok is, right? It was quite a bit of a challenge, but you got to commend the teams sitting towards those top ends. But now, speaking about top end, hey, we have a bit of a change coming through. MP somewhat rising all the way to 64 total points. I mean, that is an insane effort being brought through here. I mean, Exozone secured that second place with 42 points. I mean, 42 points, that's pretty much what our top team had at the end of last week, right?
It was exactly that. Exozone last week had 37 points up in third place. Our first place finisher, furniture? Did I say furniture? Or
yeah,
furniture?
the furniture. Yeah, furniture. Sure, furniture. Yes.
The first place finisher picked up that 42 pointer. So now MPX Samot, they just decided it wasn't enough. They picked up and added another 22 points on top and said, yeah, that's good enough for a first place finish over only 3 maps. So massive opportunity from them there. Extreme Slayers, unfortunately, they started off really, really well, but it at the very least, made sure to award them that third place finish as we moved on through very, very interesting set of games today.
Yeah, it definitely was super interesting. And I mean, well done to the players there from Exozone, right? We know last week they were caught in a 3-way tie, right? 3rd, 4th, and 5th place, all sitting on 37 points. So good to see them come back again this week, looking to just improve on their efforts. So I think it's pretty safe to say they've now locked in that slot, right? So it leaves us only to see what the teams are going to be bringing in next week, as we know there's going to be another week of action, chaos and mayhem to come through as the teams get yet another opportunity to try and make it through into our final week of that semi-finals before we venture into the overall finals. See what that final result will be. I said final so many times just then, but you know what? That also then finally leads us to the final comment for the final part of the semi-finals for this week, right? I just had to double down on it. But either which way, I think that is gonna lead us much closer to the end of the proceedings for this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. We look forward to seeing you all back again next week as we continue with our lovely Trick or Treat event right here for North America. Until then, stay safe, stay frosty. We look forward to seeing you all back at the exact same time, same place, and even more PUBG Mobile action.